He called my code vintage scrapbooking in front of the SEC and laughed. He was the CEO's son, and he shut down my system. I didn't need to argue. I had a safety switch.
You've heard arrogance before. What you haven't heard is what happened when Clause 7C activated.
The CEO's son looked at my 20-year legacy code, laughed, and called it cute vintage scrapbooking in front of the entire SEC audit team. I'm Elena Vance, 42 years old, head of quantitative risk at Sterling-Harrow Capital, and until 3 days ago, I thought I was safe. I thought 2 decades of keeping this place out of federal prison meant something. I was wrong. It was December 22nd. Snow was falling outside our 43rd floor boardroom in Midtown Manhattan. Inside, we were hosting the annual SEC compliance review, the kind of meeting where one wrong answer can trigger a federal investigation that costs you everything: your license, your reputation, your freedom. I'd run these meetings for 19 years. 19 years of translating our high-frequency trading algorithms into language that kept regulators calm and investors happy. 19 years of making sure Sterling-Harrow stayed on the right side of the law while still making obscene amounts of money. Then, Braden Sterling walked into my life. Braden is 26, Wharton MBA, 0 days of actual trading experience, and the CEO's son, which meant he was fireproof. Arthur Sterling, his father, our CEO, had just promoted him to VP of Digital Innovation. A title that meant nothing except Braden now had the authority to modernize us whether we liked it or not. He showed up to the SEC meeting in a Patagonia vest and Allbirds. The auditors wore suits. I wore a suit. Everyone except Braden understood that this was theater, and you dress for the audience. I was midway through explaining our risk mitigation protocols when Braden interrupted me. Hey, Elena, quick question. Why are we still using this Frankenstein code from, the early 2000s? Isn't that kind of a liability? The auditors looked up. I felt my jaw tighten. That Frankenstein code is called the Oracle. It's our proprietary trading algorithm. It generated $400 million in profit last year alone. It's not a liability. It's the reason this company exists. Right. But it's super old. I've been reviewing the system architecture, and honestly, it looks like cute vintage scrapbooking. We should rebuild it in Python, make it cloud native, get rid of all this legacy bloat. Cute, vintage, scrapbooking. In front of the SEC, one of the auditors, a woman named Diaz who'd been reviewing our systems for 6 years, raised an eyebrow. She knew what I knew. You don't insult your own risk infrastructure in front of regulators. It makes them wonder what else you're hiding. I smiled. The kind of smile you give someone when you're imagining their obituary. Braden, we can discuss system updates after the audit. Let's stay focused. But he wasn't done. I'm just saying, if we're trying to show the SEC we're forward-thinking, maybe we shouldn't be running code that's old enough to buy alcohol. The room went silent. Arthur, his father, cleared his throat but said nothing. He never said anything when Braden was involved. Blood protected blood. I finished the meeting. The auditors left, and I knew, right then, that Braden Sterling was going to try to kill me. Not literally. Wall Street doesn't work that way. But he was going to push me out, erase my work, and take credit for saving the company from my outdated systems. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd spent 20 years building a safety net, and he was about to fall into it. The dismantling started immediately. Braden scheduled a meeting the next morning. No warning, just a calendar invite titled Oracle Modernization Initiative. He brought a consultant, some kid from McKinsey who looked like he'd just discovered coffee. So here's the plan. We're going to migrate the Oracle to AWS, rebuild the core logic in Python, and eliminate all these redundant safety checks that are slowing down execution speed. I stared at him. The redundant safety checks are called segregation of duties. They exist because the SEC requires them. If we execute a trade above a certain threshold without manual approval, we violate federal law. Right, but that's super inefficient. We're losing milliseconds on every trade. If we automate the approval process, we can increase our execution speed and if we automate the approval process, we'll get flagged for suspicious trading patterns within a week. Then we'll get subpoenaed. Then we'll get shut down. Braden smiled, the condescending smile of someone who thinks experience is just old people being scared. Elena, I respect your caution, but we need to move faster. The street is evolving. If we don't innovate, we die. He wasn't wrong about the street. High-frequency trading is a knife fight. Milliseconds matter. Whoever executes fastest wins. But speed without safety is just suicide with extra steps. I tried to explain this. I pulled up the risk logs. I showed him the near misses we'd had over the years. The times the Oracle had caught a bad trade before it cost us millions. The times my redundant systems had saved us from algorithmic drift, from liquidity crunches, from the kind of catastrophic errors that make headlines and end careers. Braden looked bored. That's all very interesting, but I think you're overestimating the risk. We'll be fine. He overrode me. Within a week, he'd removed the manual approval gates. Within 2 weeks, he'd disabled the audit trail that tracked every trade decision. Within 3 weeks, he'd started deleting what he called zombie code, old functions that didn't seem to do anything. Except they did do something. They were load-bearing walls. The Oracle wasn't just one program, it was a nervous system. Every function connected to another function, and if you pulled the wrong thread, the whole thing unraveled. I tried to stop him. I sent emails. I documented every warning. I CC'd legal, compliance. Even Arthur himself, no one cared. Braden was the future. I was the past. And on Wall Street, the past gets erased. By mid-December, the Oracle was running faster. Braden was right about that. We were executing trades 30% quicker. Our profits ticked up. Arthur was thrilled. But I could see the cracks forming. The system was drifting. Small errors were creeping in. Trades executing at slightly wrong prices, orders getting filled in the wrong sequence. Nothing catastrophic yet. But it was coming. I logged every single error. I built a spreadsheet. I highlighted the pattern. I sent it to Braden with a subject line that read, "Urgent. Algorithmic drift detected." He replied in 3 words, "Looks fine. Thanks." Then he scheduled another meeting. This one was titled, "Organizational Restructuring." I knew what that meant. Arthur's office had a view of Central Park. Snow was falling. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like a funeral. Arthur sat behind his desk. Braden stood next to him, arms crossed, smirking like he'd just won a game I didn't know we were playing. "Elena, thank you for coming. I'll get straight to it. We're making some changes to the leadership structure, and unfortunately, your role is being eliminated. Eliminated. Not restructured, not reassigned, eliminated. You're firing me. We're transitioning to a more agile model. Braden will be taking over risk management as part of his innovation mandate. We think a fresh perspective will serve the company better going forward. A fresh perspective. That's what they call incompetence now. Arthur, you're making a mistake. The Oracle isn't stable. Braden's removed critical safeguards. If something goes wrong, nothing's going wrong, Elena. The system's performing better than ever. You're just upset because you don't like change. I really looked at him, and I realized something. He genuinely believed he was smarter than me. He thought his MBA and his last name made him untouchable. What about my year-end bonus? It vests on the 25th. Your termination is effective immediately. You'll receive 2 weeks severance. The bonus is contingent on active employment, so unfortunately, you won't be eligible. 2 weeks severance. After 19 years. After saving this company from federal prison more times than I could count. And my bonus, $240,000, gone. Because they fired me 3 days before Christmas. And the non-compete? Arthur slid a folder across the desk. Standard terms, 2 years. You're prohibited from working for any competing firm in the New York metropolitan area. If you violate it, we'll sue. 2 years. They were trying to end my career. I should have screamed. I should have flipped the desk. I should have told them exactly what I thought of their agile model and their fresh perspective. Instead, I smiled. I understand. I'll clean out my desk. Great. Thanks for being professional about this, Elena. Really. No hard feelings. No hard feelings. I stood up. I shook Arthur's hand. I even nodded at Braden. And then I walked out of that office, rode the elevator down 43 floors, and stepped out into the snow. They thought they'd won. They had no idea what they'd just done. Let me tell you about Clause 7C. I built the Oracle 20 years ago, not as an employee, as a consultant. Back in 2004, Sterling-Harrow was a mid-sized fund trying to break into high-frequency trading. They needed someone who understood both quantitative modeling and federal compliance. They needed me. I was 22, fresh out of MIT, hungry, and smart enough to know that Wall Street would chew me up if I didn't protect myself. So when Arthur's father, the original founder, offered me a contract, I negotiated. Hard. I didn't just want a paycheck. I wanted insurance. The contract I signed had a clause buried on page 11. Clause 7C. It was written in the kind of dense legalese that most people skim past. But here's what it said, in plain English. The software I built, the Oracle, wasn't sold to Sterling-Harrow. It was licensed, leased, month to month. The encryption keys that made the Oracle run, those stayed with me, not with the company, with me. As long as I was employed, the license renewed automatically. But if I was terminated without cause, or if I was terminated without 90 days written notice, the license reverted to me immediately. And reverted didn't mean I kept a copy. It meant I owned it, exclusively. And Sterling-Harrow's access expired. Arthur's father knew about Clause 7C when he signed it. He was old school. He understood that keeping me happy meant keeping the company alive. So he treated me well, paid me well, never threatened me. But Arthur's father had been dead for 5 years. And Arthur Jr., the current CEO, never read the original contract. Why would he? His lawyers handled the paperwork. His son handled modernization. Arthur just signed things and collected his golden parachute. None of them knew. When I walked out of that building on December 22nd, I went home, opened my laptop, and logged into the secure server that housed the Oracle's encryption keys. I didn't do anything yet. I just looked at them, rows of alphanumeric codes, each one a key to a different module of the trading system. Sterling-Harrow had backups, sure. But backups don't matter if you can't decrypt them. And they couldn't decrypt them without my keys. The license had a 90-day grace period. That was the safety net. If they fired me properly, with advance notice, with cause, with a clean exit, they'd have time to renegotiate or rebuild. But they hadn't fired me properly. They'd fired me on December 22nd, 3 days before Christmas. No notice, no cause, just spite, which meant the grace period didn't apply. The license would expire at 11:59 p.m. on December 23rd. Tomorrow, Christmas Eve. I poured myself a scotch. I sat by the window. I watched the snow fall over Tribeca, and I waited. The markets opened at 9:30 a.m. on Christmas Eve. It was a half-day session. Most traders were already mentally checked out, thinking about family dinners and holiday bonuses. Sterling-Harrow's trading floor was quiet. A skeleton crew. Braden wasn't even there. He'd taken a long weekend in Aspen. The Oracle was running, executing trades, making money. Everything looked fine. Until 10:15 a.m. That's when the encryption keys expired. I wasn't there, obviously, but I heard about it later. From panicked voicemails, from frantic emails, from a very angry lawyer. Here's what happened. The Oracle didn't crash. It didn't throw an error. It didn't display a warning message. It just stopped. Every trading algorithm locked. Every execution queue froze. The system was still running, technically, but it couldn't process anything. It was like a car with no engine. The dashboard lights were on, but nothing moved. The traders noticed within seconds. Trades weren't executing. Orders were piling up. Clients were calling, asking why their positions weren't being filled. The head trader, a guy named Marcus who'd been there almost as long as I had, tried to restart the system. Nothing. He called IT. They tried to reboot the servers. Nothing. They pulled up the error logs. That's when they saw it. Encryption key invalid, license expired, contact administrator. Administrator, that was me. Marcus called Arthur. Arthur called legal. Legal pulled the original consultant contract from 2004, and that's when they found Clause 7C. I imagine the meeting went something like this. Mr. Sterling, we have a problem. The Oracle's encryption keys are owned by Elena Vance, not by the company, by her, personally. That's impossible. We've been using that system for 20 years. We've been licensing it for 20 years. There's a clause in her original contract. If she's terminated without cause or without 90 days' notice, the license reverts to her immediately. We gave her 2 weeks severance. The contract requires 90 days written notice. You fired her on the 22nd. The grace period expired last night at midnight. Arthur went silent. I like to think he looked out the window at that exact moment. At the snow. At the city. At the empire he'd just lost. Can we override it? Break the encryption? Not without violating the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. If we try to bypass her security protocols, she can sue us for intellectual property theft. And she'd win. We'd also be admitting to federal authorities that we can't control our own trading systems, which would trigger an immediate SEC investigation. So what do? We call her, and we beg. My phone started ringing at 11:32 a.m. Arthur, Marcus, legal, even Braden, calling from a ski lift in Aspen. I didn't answer. I let them go to voicemail. I listened to each one. Arthur's first message was professional, polite, asking if we could discuss a potential consulting arrangement. His second message, 10 minutes later, was less polite, asking me to be reasonable. His third message, 20 minutes after that, was desperate, telling me that clients were threatening to pull their accounts, that the SEC filing deadline was Monday, that if we didn't resolve this, the company would be insolvent by New Year's. Braden's message was my favorite. Elena, hey, it's Braden. Look, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I didn't realize the system architecture was so sensitive. Maybe we moved too fast. Can we talk, please? Too fast. That's what he called it. I deleted the messages. I poured another scotch. I turned off my phone, and I waited for them to understand what I already knew. They didn't fire me. They fired the only person keeping them alive. By early afternoon, the trading floor was in chaos. The Oracle had been down for 4 hours. Sterling-Harrow had missed hundreds of trades, millions of dollars in losses. Clients were calling in a panic. Some were already talking about moving their accounts to competitors. The SEC was asking questions. Why had Sterling-Harrow gone radio silent in the middle of a trading day? Was there a system failure? A security breach? And the worst part, the part that made Arthur realize just how screwed he was the year-end audit. Sterling-Harrow had to file its annual compliance report by December 31st. That report required a complete audit trail of every trade executed in the fourth quarter. Every decision, every approval, every risk calculation. That audit trail was generated by the Oracle. Without the Oracle, there was no audit trail. Without an audit trail, there was no compliance report. Without a compliance report, Sterling-Harrow would lose its trading license. And without a trading license, Sterling-Harrow was just an expensive office with a nice view. Arthur called me 17 times that afternoon. I didn't answer any of them. The emails started around 6 p.m. Arthur's lawyer sent the first one. Subject line: urgent legal matter. Response required. It was 5 pages long, a mix of threats and pleading. They were prepared to offer me a generous consulting fee to restore access to the Oracle. They were also prepared to sue me for breach of contract if I didn't comply. I deleted it. The second email came from Arthur himself. No lawyer speak, just desperation. Elena, please. I know we handled this poorly. Let's fix it. Name your price. I stared at that email for a long time. Name your price. 20 years ago, I would have been thrilled to hear those words. 20 years ago, I thought Wall Street rewarded loyalty. I thought if you worked hard, kept your head down, and saved people from their own stupidity, they'd protect you. I was wrong. The third email came at 8 p.m. This one was from Braden. Elena, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please help us. Too late, Braden. I opened a bottle of wine. I sat by the window. I watched the snow fall over Manhattan. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, the head trader. We'd worked together for 15 years. He was one of the good ones. Elena, I don't know what happened, but half the floor is getting laid off tomorrow if we don't fix this. Please. That one hurt. Marcus didn't deserve this. The junior traders didn't deserve this. Hell, even some of the support staff didn't deserve this. But Arthur did. Braden did. And sometimes justice means collateral damage. I finished my wine. I turned off my phone. Tomorrow was Christmas. I'd decide then. I woke up on Christmas morning to 143 missed calls. The voicemails were a symphony of panic. Arthur, legal, Marcus, even a few clients who'd somehow gotten my personal number. The most interesting message came from a woman I didn't know. She introduced herself as Amanda Reese, senior investigator with the SEC. Ms. Vance, this is Amanda Reese with the Securities and Exchange Commission. We've received reports of a system outage at Sterling-Harrow Capital. We need to speak with you regarding the company's compliance status. Please return this call immediately. The SEC was involved now, which meant Arthur had about 48 hours before federal investigators started asking very uncomfortable questions about why Sterling-Harrow couldn't access its own trading systems. I made coffee. I sat down at my laptop, and I drafted an email. Subject: consulting terms. The Oracle system restoration. Gentlemen, I am prepared to restore access to the Oracle trading system under the following non-negotiable terms. 1. Immediate reinstatement as head of quantitative risk with a 5-year employment contract. 2. Full back pay of my year-end bonus, $240,000 plus penalty interest. 3. Termination of the non-compete clause. 4. A formal written apology from Braden Sterling, to be distributed company-wide, acknowledging his errors in judgment. 5. Permanent veto authority over any changes to the Oracle's core architecture. 6. A one-time consulting fee of $2.5 million for system restoration services. These terms are valid for 24 hours. After that, the price doubles. Regards, Elena Vance. I hit send. Then I went back to bed. They called an emergency board meeting. Arthur read my terms out loud. The board members, old money types who usually spent Christmas skiing in Switzerland, sat in stunned silence. $2.5 million? That's extortion. Actually, it's not. She owns the encryption keys, legally. We have no leverage. What if we rebuild the system from scratch? That would take 6 months minimum. We'd lose our license long before then. And every client we have. Arthur looked at Braden. Braden looked at the floor. What about the apology? That's humiliating. It's also the cheapest item on the list. They debated for 3 hours. They tried to negotiate. They sent counteroffers. I rejected every single one. Finally, at 11 p.m. on December 26th, I received an email from Arthur's personal account. We accept your terms, all of them. Please restore the system immediately. Attached was a signed contract, a wire transfer confirmation for $2.74 million, and a company-wide email from Braden Sterling with the subject line, an apology. I read Braden's email 3 times. It was everything I wanted. A full admission of incompetence, an acknowledgement that he'd endangered the company, a promise to defer to experienced leadership going forward. It was perfect. I opened my laptop. I logged into the encryption server, and with one click, I restored access to the Oracle. I went back to Sterling-Harrow on January 2nd. New office, corner view, and a contract that made me untouchable. Braden still works there. Arthur made him keep the VP title. Blood protects blood, remember? But Braden doesn't come to my meetings anymore. He doesn't override my decisions. He doesn't even make eye contact. Sometimes, when I walk past his office, I see him staring at his computer screen, probably Googling how to rebuild a legacy system, or what is Clause 7C. He'll never touch the Oracle again. The Oracle runs perfectly now. I restored all the safeguards. I rebuilt the audit trails. I even added a few new features, things that'll make sure Sterling-Harrow stays compliant for the next 20 years. And every month, when the encryption keys renew, I get a little notification on my phone. A reminder that I own the thing that keeps this place alive. Arthur avoids me in the hallways. The board treats me like a bomb they're afraid to defuse. Even the junior traders whisper when I walk by. Good. Let them whisper. Let them remember that cute vintage scrapbooking just cost them $2.5 million. And let them remember that the next time someone with experience tries to warn them, they should probably listen. Because on Wall Street, the old school systems aren't just legacy code. They're the foundation. And if you try to delete the foundation, the whole building comes down. I learned that 20 years ago. Braden learned it on Christmas Eve.